Good. Well, guys, welcome to the Levelin Up podcast. So grateful to have you tuning in. I'm your success strategist, Brigham Blackham. I'm the host. So excited to have Nelson Dellis on today.
If you tell me that you have no need for an improved memory, you're lying, or
You're
you're lying
lying.
to yourself.
Or they just
Because
forgot that they needed to know that, right?
it'll amplify everything you do if you could just remember things. A lot of ideas there that's maybe tucked under the pile and are mixed around, and you can't quite get it, even though you know it's in there. And so it's a recall problem. So having some kind of organizational structure.
First, man, I just want to say thank you for coming to the podcast. This is going to be an awesome conversation. Really excited to have you on.
Sure. Yeah, no, happy to be on here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So now you're six-time USA memory champion. What is that like to be like, well, 4 times was good, but I mean, 6 times.
It's funny because, yeah, I mean, even counting up to, even to 1 time, 2 time. I mean, 1 time was great because it was like the one thing I was aiming for. 2 time just sounded like they were back to back. It was like, cool. What else do I need to do? And then I was like, I'm not going to stop. So 3 time and then 4 time. But there, the only reason I kept going, because to the lay person, 4 or 5 or 6, it's a lot, right? And it shows that I know mastery, right? Which for my business is all I needed, right?
Yeah.
But the only reason I kept going is just because there was another gentleman from earlier in the history of memory competitions who I'd also won for, and I was trying to go for the most winning person with 5. So, and then the 6, I was retired at 6th last year. I just had like a feeling that I needed to come back and win 1 more. I don't know. Yeah.
Awesome. Just needed to have it happen. That's so good.
Well, it wasn't so much that. I actually had not to get too weird, but a premonition that I was going to be holding the trophy again. And I was like, well, that's not going to happen unless I sign up. So
it's kind of hard to win if you're not in the competition. So like, hey, got to throw in the chips and see if you can actually win something. That's excellent.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, way good. Well, guys, welcome to the Levelin Up podcast. So grateful to have you tuning in. I'm your success strategist, Brigham Blackham. I'm the host. So excited to have Nelson Dellis on today. And we're going to have just a conversation dialing in how we can mind our story, really take memory techniques, your background as a 6-time USA memory champion, and really lay out why this has helped you in your business, be able to monetize your message, some different tactics and strategies you've been able to utilize as a world-class speaker and just world-class memory expert. Would love to hear all of these different things. You guys definitely want to stay all the way to the end because this is going to be one that you're definitely going to want to listen to over and over again. Well, Nelson, welcome to the call, my friend. So excited to have you here.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Yeah, it's great. Well, let's first start off with your background. I know memory expert, there's so many facets to what it is that you do. It's not just hey, I'm going to just go learn enough to become a memory expert. That's not something you just get in one day. What does it take to become the champion? Not just once, but 6 times. Oh my gosh, it's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, first of all, is becoming aware that there are things such as memory techniques. And no matter what your memory is like, if you're a person who thinks you have a terrible memory or you think you have a good memory, it really doesn't hold anything to what it's like to learn memory techniques and apply those techniques. We all can do it, and we all can improve our memories to a degree that you probably would never believe unless you tried these techniques. So that was the first step, and that is the first step for anybody to get to that point, to realize that and to open up to that potential. And then once I got there, and this was just a small peek into that world, just realizing that by doing some exercises and starting the training a little bit, but then it was just sitting down every day, doing something I learned to love. I didn't know that I would love memorizing things. It didn't sound like I would, but I slowly fell in love with maybe not slowly. I quickly fell in love with the feeling of having a super ability. That's really what it felt like. And behind that also there was a motivation to do that training every day, day in, day out, because my grandmother's situation, she had Alzheimer's at the time that I started, had she passed away kind of at the start of it all. And that fueled me to kind of, not want same thing to happen to me as I age. And I thought that my ticket would be to train the heck out of my memory in my 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And so that when I turn 80, 70, 80, 90, I'd be a lot stronger up here,
Absolutely. And then you have the motivation of being able to say, well, this happened to my loved one, my grandma. How do I help other people not have that as well? Because I know it's not just, hey, I want to do it for myself. You're now a coach. You help other people dial in their memory techniques, understand what it takes to have not just a good memory, because I feel like anybody can get a good memory. It's having a well-trained memory.
Yeah.
And that takes skills, that takes discipline, that takes understanding how to apply this over time, spaced repetition. There's so many facets to this. So let's step into what this means for the audience, because we have speakers, we have trainers, we have coaches. Why is memory so essential to being a speaker and monetizing your message? Let's start with that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great thing that you bring up, and it's memory is in everything that we do. First of all, I mean, if you tell me that you have no need for an improved memory, you're lying, or you're lying to yourself.
Or they just forgot that they needed to know that,
right? It'll amplify everything you do if you could just remember things quicker, more effortlessly. Like it takes also less effort to get it memorized and to recall it. And as a speaker or as a coach, right, you can remember your speeches, the information that you want to relay across to somebody else. And it's not even so much about being able to remember more. Honestly, I feel like the biggest part of it all for me and how it's enhanced my life and my career is it just allows me to focus on the things that are actually important, like connecting with an audience or talking about deep things in a very honest way that it doesn't look like I'm trying to remember something, or waste time, not waste time, but spend more time having to put this thing in my brain. Like if with my memory techniques, I can do that quickly, efficiently, and then move on to the other parts, which is, tending to the relationships that I have around me, networking, being charismatic, caring about the individuals in front of me. And that to me, I feel like, especially for me, is the most important part, especially about being a speaker and teaching and trying to convey some message,
I think that's beautiful. It frees you up. So I come from a background in acting, and that's what my bachelor's was in, is theater arts studies. And as soon as you are off book, meaning you've memorized the entire script, that is where acting actually starts.
Okay.
It's not during the process of memorization. It's when you are free to make choices. It's when you're free to understand this is what the character's given circumstances are. I understand it now. I've got it in my body. Now I can make choices and play with it. And that's where you bring a script alive. So that's what it sounds like you do as a speaker. You're not just worrying about, oh, what's the next thing? That's not connecting with your audience. Being able to tap into that story and allow your audience to feel you heart to heart, not just mind to mind, changes everything.
Yeah. And then on top of that, I think having a good memory and having a well-trained memory where you get to this point where you know what it takes to remember something or to recall something or to put it in your memory, there's a confidence that comes with that about your ability to do anything cognitive, whether it be to say a speech or to come across a certain way in a certain situation. And it's done wonders for my social life and the way I carry myself. I used to be very shy and uncertain about my moves and how I was being perceived, and sure, that still creeps in. I'm not immune to that fully, but I definitely have a lot more self-confidence because I had a better memory.
I love that. One of the things that sticks out to me is confidence is really competence. If you are highly competent, you don't have to think about what it is you're doing. You're unconsciously competent. So you're able to just deliver your speech. You're able to get your message across and focus on the heart-to-heart conversations rather than trying to struggle through the things that are holding you back. So
That's right.
let's go here. I know you're a speaker. You've been doing this for a while. Let's hear one of those hiccups on stage, and how did you overcome one of the times where maybe you had a memory lapse and you're like, oh, now what do I do? I would love to hear one of those stories.
I mean, what you mean, like before memory?
Yeah, before your
I was
memory
deep into
techniques.
my
Did you
memory
have any
stuff.
of those? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a thing that happens to me a lot, believe it or not, and it's still to this day, but less so, um, is I forget my place
Yeah,
in a line of thought, and
sure.
I don't know what the reason is for that. I feel like I'm a very competent guy, but I often find myself lost in my thoughts,
Mm.
not in a bad way, but I'm very forget about me being a memory champion, but I'm very nostalgic, and I like to like revel in my memories and my
Mm.
images that come to mind. And I think so, and I just like to brainstorm and try
Yeah.
to solve problems. And I think I get distracted there. So even in like mid sentence, I'll sometimes lose my place, and it's the most frustrating thing because I start to think like people can tell I'm stuck or that I'm like trying to fill in words to eventually connect to where I meant to go, but it's not coming. And I think the more it goes on or I try to stretch it out, people are noticing, and then it just becomes this whole thing, and I just don't know what to do. And I get hives and start sweating, and eventually, not eventually always, but most of the time I have to be like, wait, what was I saying? And then hopefully that kind of breaks the ice, but it's always so
Uh,
embarrassing. So that's always been something that's happened to me. And yeah, it happened even at my wedding, where we
really?
had and this was even, I was already a few years deep into my memory journey, but we had to exchange vows, and the what do you call it, the pastor or whatever
Uh-huh.
was telling me the line, a sentence at a time, and I knew these lines, but I had to repeat them. And
Yep.
one of them I was like, what was it again? And of course everybody's like, the memory champion. How hilarious is that? But this is just, I think, part of who I am. But it's definitely doesn't I was very nervous that day. um, it's very special circumstances, but I can find myself a lot more grounded these days because of the memory techniques, and I have a lot more security that won't happen.
Mm.
So that's just
I think
one thing that.
it's nice to see that even though you're at that highest level of memory, that sometimes we have brain farts, and that's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
One of the things I
And,
have in my book is all about stage fright, how to overcome it. Is
oh, cool.
a lot of times people will focus in on themselves. I wanted to share a little bit with this. So one of the elements of overcoming stage fright
Mhm.
is when you are focusing on yourself. That's when the hives come. That's when the frustration comes. That's when you start getting caught up. But as soon as you have arrows out, focusing on how do I deliver this message the best I can for my audience, that arrows out mentality, that focus on making sure that it's understandable, it's clear, takes the focus off you, and a lot of the anxiety can just be shifted to excitement. And I was like, that is exactly what happens when we have a brain fart. I've noticed this. I start thinking, oh, what was my next thought? It's like, take a big breath, and you're like, oh, well, this is where I was last. I'm going to back up, and then sometimes that's all it takes to get back on track. What are some
Interesting.
of the tricks that you've experienced being able to, if you get lost, to be able to get back on track?
Yeah, I mean, one of the best ways, especially for giving some kind of speech where you have to follow, some
Mhm.
points to make a coherent, sequence of ideas, is you can use a memory palace, all right, which is
Yes.
basically where you imprint images that represent whatever the topics are that you're trying to touch on
Mhm.
in the order that they are. You imprint them on a pathway through a mental visual of a pathway through a familiar space or a place like your house
Mhm.
or the gym that you go to. And it's usually a place that's familiar to you for the reason that it's so memorable already. Like if you were to close your eyes and think of your house, starting at your
Right.
front door and walking through your house like a certain route, we all can do that.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised how easily you could do that, actually, because we've never really sat down to memorize it, but voila, it's there. And you can't forget your house. So if you can attach images for the things you want to talk about to help you remember those things,
Right.
but they're attached to these locations, if you ever lose your place or in the actual speech, it's very easy to find your place in the memory palace, which will hold the structure or the sequence of what you're supposed to say. So that does happen to me, where and this is why I can find myself usually is, I might get carried away saying or elaborating on some topic. And then, in my mind, I'm thinking like, oh, where was I going next with this? And then it's like, oh, I was in the kitchen, in my mind. And the next place is the pantry. Right. And there in my pantry, and I'm not saying this out loud, I'm just kind of seeing it in my third eye. There is the next topic, an image of the next topic to help remind me, let me segue to there now,
That makes it really accessible for anyone. I love the memory palace idea. I feel like anytime you take the topic that you have, break it into a few key principles, and then I like to use mind maps, but that's basically what you're doing. Is you're taking this idea and you're putting it in your backyard or in a visual that it's a visual space that you're very familiar with. So you don't have to worry about memorizing the space. You already know the space. So now you just need to say, here's where I am. Here's the next location, and you connect those.
I love our brains. I was going to say quickly why the mind map works as well is we're very spatially oriented. We can remember spatial information really well, which is why the memory palace works so well. Even though it may sound like, if you've never heard of it before, it may sound like, why would I do all that extra work to take this picture and put it in my house and then walk around my house? It's because it works really well. And that's what our brains are kind of like magnetized to. Listen, it's been the best training for me, like to win last year.
Yeah.
I had to do all of the things I was doing when I won my first time when I was like 26 and doing nothing with my life except train. Now I had to do that when I was, with 4 kids. And I think it prepared me like better than it ever had,
Right. Yeah. 4 kids. How old are your kids, just space-wise?
Almost 7, almost 5, 3.5, and just over 1.
Nice. That's nice and compact. Mine are from 1 to 12. So I've got a 4-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 12-year-old. So a little bit wider space, but man, it's fun.
Wow. That's good stuff. That's tough to reset every time there.
It's a hard reset because you get them out of diapers and you're like right back into it.
Yeah. It's funny when I was in, I go to Tanzania a lot to, I have a small business where I run climbs up Kilimanjaro.
Oh, cool.
And the guides, one of my close friends, he's in his 50s. And he always asks, or he's asked me a couple of times, he says, look, why do Americans always have their kids like so close to each other? And I think he had a kid that was maybe, 20 and 12. And then he just had one maybe that was 7, And it's like, it's a good point. Like, I think in America, we're always just like, let's get it over with, and do this thing.
That's the content.
But then for them, it's the family is the life, that's what they have their main focus on instead of like work, get everything done and different stages of your life. It's like just one thing for them. I thought it was pretty nice.
That is beautiful. Yeah. Well, maybe let's come back to what we were talking about. We were talking about memory palaces and the importance of being able to place these images along the path of your house or something that you're very familiar with.
Yeah. And that I was saying how they work, even though they sound like a lot more work, that they are actually better. Our brains are designed to remember spatial information.
Yeah.
And so all we're doing is taking advantage of that when we use a spatial place like a memory palace or even a mind map, is taking advantage of that fact too.
I think it's beautiful. One of the reasons why I also like mind maps and some of those visual organizers, my background's in teaching. So I taught Mandarin Chinese and theater in high school, and having a visual representation of what it is you're talking about. For some people, if they struggle visualizing, that's another way that they can see it before they try and file it away in your head. Like in your book, you talk about making sure you see and then you link and then you go. I would love a little recap of why that's so essential in anything that you do with memory.
Yeah, sure. That was from my book, which I wrote in 2018, and I've been doing memory for a while. There it is. Yeah, I love it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Shameless plug.
And I really had to, think about how I approached everything. Because, the techniques that I employ and teach, they are my take on it, but they've been around for thousands of years. Like, I don't own them.
Right.
This is just some smart people thousands of years ago thought of this stuff and realized their brains work like this really well. And they had to, because that's how you remember things. If not, there were no books, there were no devices to store this stuff. It was like either there or not there. And so it's just all, practice and training, and these memory techniques work so well when you really give them the training that they need.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. One of the things that I think is really powerful for any speaker, anybody that wants to monetize their message, get their ideas out, is making sure that you truly see your content and know how to break it down into its most simple, basic pieces. I think that's what you're talking about with the images, saying, what is the principle here? And then as soon as you see that principle, then you can have the elaboration of all the stories and the details. What have you been able to do to dial in your story and simplify it so you're like, oh, this is the image for, 20 minutes of your talk?
Yeah. So even before getting to that, but the idea of simplifying it down, is where this C-Link Go comes from. So trying to distill this process that I've been doing into these simple steps, and how can I then apply this simple thing to giving speeches or memorizing numbers or memorizing a deck of cards. And, the C part is, okay, take this information and you want to transform it into something that you can actually see in your mind's eye. And it's not necessarily the exact words that are on the page or the script that you've written for yourself, but some representation, some association that can encompass it, or at least be a cue to help you remember the actual thing. And usually the simpler it is, but the more elaborate in terms of sensory information as you imagine it, the more powerful it is. And if you try to really think too hard about it, or try to shoehorn it in, it doesn't work as well. You really want to go with what you instinctively think of when you're looking at something, and maybe what it reminds you of, what it sounds like, what it makes you feel. Those are the best. And then the linking part is, well, take that and organize it in some fashion. And that's where a technique like a memory palace might work well. And you're linking those images to those locations to kind of keep it in place. And the reason we want to do that is because most of the time, if you ask anybody to memorize something, they don't really have a process how to do it. They kind of think about it and review it, and hopefully it's somewhere sitting in a pile of ideas in your mind.
Right.
But many times there's a lot of ideas there that's maybe tucked under the pile and are mixed around, and you can't quite get it, even though it's in there. And so it's a recall problem. So having some kind of organizational structure via some links, and a link is just a fancy way of attaching something new to something that's already firmly planted in your mind, then it gives you a way to reliably pull the information out. And then that last step, go, is how you keep that thing forever, if you'd like to. Where are you going to go with it? Is it you need it for 5 minutes because you got to give a talk in 5 minutes, or is it this speech or poem that you want to internalize and keep with you for a long time, if not forever, right? And so the only thing that separates putting something in your memory palace for the immediate recall, or for 10 years from now recall, is how much you review it, and how much you visit it in your mind. The more you rehearse those neural pathways, the more well-greased and familiar they will be, and more internalized automatic muscle memory they will become.
This is such a great insight, because one of the things that I'm taking away from this is, when I was in my acting career, every time you learn something new, like blocking or choreography or all these different things, if you didn't have your script down, it's like trying to attach something that wasn't already attached. It's like, oh, and it just falls. Crap. But as soon as you are really solid in one element, so you've got your lines and you have your blocking, adding in choreography, adding in costume changes, adding in things like that, makes it so you can build a really dynamic performance. As a speaker, just hearing this idea of, oh, maybe it's a poem you want to internalize, or it's something that you want to not just have the surface level connection with, but really have those heart to hearts. That's when you don't have to think about that process. You did it long enough and you have internalized it well enough that you can just speak from the heart and have those words live. So valuable. It's like such a crucial skill to have. And I think that's where you add the most value to it, being a speaker, is taking this cerebral stuff and being able to say, if I want to be able to communicate this effectively, have my message land, I have to not be thinking about it while I'm delivering it. I have to feel it and let those emotions come through.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
I'll tell you a little story. I've spent, years training for these competitions, and we have to memorize cards, numbers, names. Mm-hmm. And then even the names are just random headshots of people I don't know. So it's not like they're useful names. All this information is relatively useless past the event that it's for. Right. It's all random information. It's not like I want to keep it forever. So I spend a lot of my time training those things. So often the things that I'm head down studying, memorizing is pointless, right? Other than to train me, right? So I forget this sometimes, that memorizing, and I don't really memorize my speech anymore because I know it so well. Mm-hmm. But outside of that, I don't really say memorize poems. But last year, or the end of 2023, there was a poem that I was like, you know what? I really want to memorize this thing. And I was like, I wonder, like I've had to memorize poems for competition, but again, same thing. I just don't care. I just want to get the words correctly. Once it's out, I don't keep it, but mm-hmm. this poem that connected with me, I wanted to like be in it and have it be a part of me. So I memorized it, and it was such an awakening experience for me, which is funny because I've been memorizing for so long, and I did this one memorizing of a poem, and I really appreciated how it came alive inside of me. And once it was internalized, it became so much more than just a collection of words on a page. I know this sounds obvious. Obviously, it's a poem. It's deeper than that. But I felt like I was a vessel for whatever that author had initially wrote or come up with. And it was like traveling through me, It was a really powerful experience. And, that poem for me now is such a sacred place to visit in my mind and to say. It's so much more than those words. And I made a little video about it on my YouTube channel even, and just encouraged people to take time to like memorize something that's meaningful to you, because it becomes yours and you can do so much with it. And I've used it many times just to tell myself the poem. I've used it to inspire others on the mountain. And it just feels like it's a friend of mine. And it's this powerful thing that's just given an extra voice through my body,
Absolutely. I had a church leader that shared this concept with me years ago, that your mind is like a stage, and you get to guard that stage with either being having a great actor on there, or if you have a bad actor, being able to pull them off the stage as quickly as possible. And the way you do that is with great music, with poems, with scriptures, with things that you can say, oh, I don't like that idea. I'm going to take them off the stage. I'm going to fill my mind now with positive thoughts. And that's the power of a great poem or a great thing that you connect with.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. You can build those voices that and the memory structure of what is like the tapestry of your memory, like what's on the walls there, like putting posters up in your bedroom when you're a teen, like to plaster your identity around the wall. It's all around you. It's the same kind of idea, I think.
Absolutely. And when you think about which things are most meaningful to you, if you really treasure those things, why not memorize them? Right? I think that's beautiful. One of the things that sticks out to me is the importance of some songs, like even hymns, that if you sing them when you are feeling sad or frustrated, they can have a complete shift in your mental process.
Right.
So we have something called the triad in my coaching practice, and it's this idea of sometimes people focus on one thing so hard that they create a meaning based on that, and then it feeds into their physicality. So
I
if
can
you
see that.
think about something super negative and you focus on that, then you create a meaning based on that, and it feels weighty or difficult to bear. But if you shift that and you say, you know what, now I'm going to step into this happy mentality, and if something negative happens, you can actually, like, let's say your drink tips over and you're just like, because you had that physical response that was positive, now the meaning gets shifted from negative to positive, and then you can create what you focus on in an intentional way. So memory is very similar like that. So what are some of the stories that you've had as far as being able to speak on stage or even one-on-one that you're like, I'm so glad that I had this skill set? Like, what made it worth it for you to be able to be such a great memory specialist?
Oh, wow. Honestly, I'd say the reaction I get from people who discover this technique.
Yeah.
In my speeches, a big part of kind of relaying the message, because I can stand there and say, here are the memory techniques I learned. Here's how I do them, and wow the pants off of everybody, and then walk off the stage, and people will clap and be like, wow, that was impressive. He has a really good memory. But that's never my goal. If I do a demo, it's to show, I try to make it so that it seems like to the audience member, I could potentially do that. That's what I want them to think, right? And at first, of course, they see me do something and they're like, there's no way I could do that.
Like, well,
So I set up that, right? And then through the talk, we do a lot of examples. And my goal is always to get the person to rewrite how they feel about their memory. And usually at the beginning, I ask them who has a bad memory, they raise their hand. Almost everybody raise their hand. And by the end, you can see and feel the shift of everybody being like, wait a minute. I have an amazing memory. And not only that, but I could see how I could potentially do what Nelson's doing on stage, And for me, that's what I love. I love seeing that shift in people. And, sometimes in the speech or after an event, I have a networking event related or drinks afterwards, or sometimes I come back the next year and I see the same people or a few of the same people. And I love getting the feedback from people like, you changed my perception on my own memory. Like, I've always been stuck. I never thought I could do this and that. And even though I haven't even trained yet, just the little exercises you showed me changed everything. And I think that is the most important thing, because I saw that at one point too, and it changed my life. And so to be able to even plant that seed in everybody or most of the people that I speak to, that's all I want, and it's so amazing.
And taking your story and your example in a way that allows them to see, oh, it's not just possible for Nelson to do it. It's like, oh, I can do that too. That possibility that you create in people, absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, so powerful. Yeah.
What is one of those skills that you would say, if you could do this one thing, would make the biggest impact on your memory overall?
Yeah. If you could, I mean, the real answer is pay attention more. Because ultimately, even if I'm distilling down like the process into the C-Link Go stuff, coming up with pictures, blah, 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 really what it is on the surface level is paying a lot of attention to something, Granted, there's a little more to it than that, but
For sure.
You have to think of our brain as a receiver. Well, not our brain, but our sensory inputs, right? Through our eyes, nose, all of the sensory information that we get, that's immediately available. That's all, generally speaking, what I'm looking at in my peripheral vision is what's in my line of sight. What I can hear is what's coming into my ear, auditory part of my brain. And so with all of that, you build this image. And if that isn't focused on the thing that you want to pay attention to, sure, maybe some subconscious stuff could come in, or subliminal messaging, right? But most of what you're trying to learn, you have to focus that receiver on it. And most of us want to do that, but it's hard in this day and age, especially when there's so many distractions. So being able to understand that memory is hugely, if not completely, reliant on focus will change the way you remember things. That's the first thing. So if you can tweak that, if you can find ways to hack your focus, or I'd say eliminate distractions or task switching, then your memory will amplify even without the techniques, really.
That's so good. One of the things I learned early on in theater was this idea of placing focus where you want the audience to look. Everything as a director is like, where are the lights pointing? Where are my eyes as an ensemble pointed? Where is my body pointing? And you tell the story by helping the audience know where to look. And if it's not clear where to look, then they could get the story, but they also might miss it. And that's the danger of not being really clear with where you're placing your focus. So that was a great point that you brought up. Perception is often how well we focus on one thing. So when you are thinking about that tip that's like, man, in 1 minute, what would be like the coolest tip that you're like, this is going to improve your memory like that? That's other than focus. What's like, this is the one. This is the one.
No, the other thing is just whatever, it's that first step, that C part. So whatever you're trying to memorize, try to find a way to encode it into something or visualize it as some image or picture in your mind. And a little bit more to that is these pictures should be as colorful, vibrant, silly, over the top, grotesque as possible. I mean, you don't have to have all of those in one image, but touch on some of that, using all of your senses, or as many of the senses as you can when you visualize or try to see this image in your mind. Just doing that and having this concept of, information has to be processed through this lens now, through some kind of transformation into something that's associative to something that I already know and that I can amplify by all these sensory exaggerations. That is so big, and you'll see instantly that your memory holds on to that stuff way more than just the dry information that is bombarding us all the time.
That's so good. So literally see it as clearly, as vividly, as bright as you can. One of the things I remember really drilling into my Chinese students was the importance of making it mean something. Because a lot of times people are like, well, this is the direct translation. This word is this word. And you're like, that's so surface level that in a moment you're going to forget it. But thinking is just asking and answering questions. That's one of my favorite ways to describe thinking. If you ask the right questions, you can start to see details because you're paying attention to those details. Like, what's the visual, audio, kinesthetic, gustatory ways that you process this information? Now you're taking all those in because you asked the question. But if you didn't ask the question, you won't see them.
Yeah.
So I know you speak, is it 3 other languages? You speak French? What other languages?
French, fluent, English, a little bit of Spanish because I grew up in Miami and dated a lot of Spanish girls.
Hey.
And then I dabbled in Dutch and Swahili.
Awesome. So you've got a background in language learning. I do too. I speak Mandarin and Spanish and a little French and some ASL and English. Okay, I guess. But he's like, yeah, I can see that. What is your favorite way to take these learning techniques and apply it to foreign language?
Yeah. I mean, I have an advantage because I'm really good at memorizing words. So that's one of the first things I tackle when I'm going after a language project is let me learn the first most popular 1,000 words. And it doesn't take me very long. Which is great. And this is going back to what I was saying about why memory techniques are so great, is because for the average person to learn 1,000 words and know them would take them a while. But if you're well practiced in memory techniques, again, not too difficult to get to this point. It could take you, in my case, it can take a sitting, but it might take a couple sittings and a couple days or something to master that. And not saying that by itself makes you fluent, but it's already 1,000 words that you now know and could recognize and potentially speak and read. And you can apply some of these techniques to memorizing grammar rules as well,
Yeah.
and sentence structure, or pre kind of set conversation question answers that you can have kind of in your back pocket to kind of get you to a further starting point, right? Rather than having to start from the very beginning knowing nothing. Yeah.
That's so key. So I'm putting together a class. It's called Mandarin in 60 days. And that's the first step, is getting the first 1,000 characters down. Once you have those, that's leaning into Pareto's principle, the 80-20 rule. And as you focus on those things that are the highest frequency, the most useful, then you are able to take those and apply them in so many different settings.
Yeah.
Because it's just so useful. Go ahead.
Yeah. And it goes back to what we were talking about before. Like if I was going to say to myself, and I didn't know memory techniques, I'm going to learn the first 1,000 words, and it's hard for me. I don't think I have a great memory, and it's just drawn out. Like it takes me a month or something like this. Like, you're going to be demotivated. You're not going to feel like you're learning the language, and you can't get to the good stuff, until you've done that. Let's say you can, but in your mind, you might be like, I got to learn the first 1,000 words, and then I'll do this. Right. What I'm saying is, with memory techniques, I can get that out of the way. And the 1,000 words are already in my memory bank, and then I can do the interesting stuff. Start speaking with a tutor, start trying to read books, and learn the grammar, take classes, and I already have a leg up with 1,000 words in my arsenal, So again, the reason that memory techniques can be so effective or useful is because they make your life more efficient, right? And you can worry about the important stuff and push the data logging to the back,
Absolutely. Well, one of the things that I think is key here as well, if you want to master a language versus just be familiar with a language, there has to be usefulness in it. So one of the things that I've noticed being fluent in a language is, how do I take this and then make it mean something today? How do I make it useful? And sometimes I would even give an example, like, let's look up a random word in the dictionary. I don't care what it is, and I will show you how you can use that right now and have it stick. And they're like, any word? I'm like, literally any word. They're, okay, and they look up this random word, like, hey, use this word. And I was like, what you can do is you can talk about the word. Like, have you heard that word? Like, give me a random word, Nelson. What's one? You're like, well, I don't know what that is. Like,
how crazy do you want me to be?
Crazy word. Oh, pamplemousse. That was one that I learned from your book. So that was,
in French, pamplemousse. Yeah.
Pamplemousse. So
you
can say, man, have you heard the word pamplemousse? Like, it is like the craziest thing. I can't believe I heard, like, pamplemousse. You've heard this, right? Pamplemousse. Like, what the heck does that mean? Wait, you don't know what pamplemousse means? So literally talking about the word, you now made it useful for yourself. You playful, and being able to bring it in, and then you're creating curiosity. Like, where did you hear that?
Yeah.
And you're in a conversation.
Yeah, and I apply this to names too. So there's a memory technique to remember names, but I think one of the effective ones is to make a conversation about a person's name. Even if you don't go into it saying, I'm going to use Nelson's memory technique to memorize this person's name, if you just be like, what's your name? They say their name, like Brigham or Brigham. Brigham or Brigham?
Brigham, yeah.
Brigham, right? But yeah, you might. That's not the common name you hear everywhere. But I mean, if I want to memorize that, I'm just going to start asking you, like, why did your parents call you that? Any story behind it? Like, what is it? Is it native, like from this area? Is it a family name? What's going on? And you may have a story that's very interesting. You may not. But the fact that we're starting to talk about it, and the fact that you say, no, I don't know, it's just a weird name my parents gave me. Not that your name is weird, but a unique name that your parents gave you could be enough to make that conversation stand out. And then you remember the name,
It's so good. And it's because you focused on it. That's one of the things you keep bringing up. You're like, I care enough about this person to listen hard enough to know how to pronounce it, and then make some associations based on that name. And having the conversation about it makes it more useful. Yeah. So this is something I even say in my class, I think is key. You don't learn a language, you get used to a language. You learn words, you learn phrases. That's not the language. The language is all of those interconnected. It's not even technically a subject. You can learn a subject. The language is every element of that system of communication. You just get used to the language. So I think that's a key distinction is you get those words, and then how do I get used to that word in this context? How do I get used to that word in this context? Having them in your body, in your memory bank, like you said, having any type of grammar understanding makes it easier for you to communicate. Doesn't make it easy necessarily, but it makes it easier.
Yeah,
so
that's true. Cool. I like that perspective. That's cool.
Yeah, that's way fun. Well, let's summarize here. We've gone through a bunch of great, like literally world-class techniques to memorize, different ways that you can take these ideas and apply it. What is one thing or one story that I didn't ask you about that you wish I had, that you're like, man, this is the thing you need to know about Nelson? Tell me that story.
Oh man.
No.
I mean, I was just gonna say, I didn't get to where I got to in the world of memory sports without like making the effort, and I think a big part of that, like, it's easy to say, like, work hard, there's motivation. No, it's trying to find why I want to work hard, right? I don't think I recognized that necessarily when I was starting out. I was naturally fueled by what had happened to my grandmother. But over the years, as I went for my second and my third and my fourth and my fifth and my sixth, it's like, what am I doing? Like, what's going to pull me down to my basement here when, my family's upstairs and I got to memorize a deck of cards, or I'm not going to win this damn thing? What's going to pull me away from my family so much that I can do that, day in and day out? And it's all how I motivate myself. It's finding that why that was so important to me, and making such a powerful why, such that it motivates me for the long term. I think that's the most important thing in anything you do, not necessarily memory, but it does apply to memory as well, and any skill you want to learn, in my opinion. So I think that's an important takeaway. I think people generally understand that, but I think it's cool to hear. I'm imagining myself as someone listening. It's cool to hear that this can also be the case for something like memory, which seems so. People think it's innate that you have this thing or you don't, but that's not the case. It is just a skill like anything else. Are there people who are naturally a bit better? Maybe a little bit, but when you apply memory techniques, I don't think it matters at all. I think anybody can be a champion level memorizer if you give it the time and you have the true dedication and motivation to do it.
Absolutely. Well, Nelson, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us, your stories. Great level of understanding and how people can plug in to improve their memory. Really actionable insights. So just over deliver on the value. Where do people find you online? I did tell them about your book, so definitely go grab his book. Remember it. It's awesome.
Great. My website, nelsondellis.com. You can find all my info there. I have my memory course, which is going live every summer. So that'll open up for registration soon. I have a new book coming out next year, which is just expanding off of memory into more memory and other genius creating skills that I'm teaching to other people. And my YouTube channel has a lot of fun videos that you can start with, get your taste of memory techniques, and go from there.
Wonderful. Well, once again, thank you so much. I appreciate you. You had such a over-delivering of value. So thanks from the bottom of my heart. And guys, keep leveling up your life. If you're wanting a little bit more insight on how to get your story dialed in, how to take your insights and turn them into actionable opportunities for growth, I've got my book, 3 Reasons Stage Fright Costs and Why You Must Fix It. I implore you, DM me. I would love to give you that opportunity to connect deeper with us. Once again, Nelson, thank you so much. And
you got it.
We'll sign off right there. God bless, guys. Sweet. And we'll cut it right there. So
perfect.
Good stuff, brother. Well, I appreciate it. That was so much fun. Even the interruptions were great.
It felt fitting. I understand it very much. Although I'm in the basement, like I said, so I get like pounding on the ceiling, like cars
I've
flying.
got these on, right? So it's harder for kids to to be distracting. Still not impossible though. I mean, you definitely could hear it.
Well, yeah, no,
like
that's the thing.
pounding
You would have heard
hard.
it. It's not
Yeah.
distracting me. I'm good with it, but you can actually hear it in the recording.
Oh, that's fun. Well, man, I appreciate you. Oh, I wanted to also invite you. I know I sent it to you, but we've got on the 18th and 19th that such a good opportunity to connect on the totality event that we're doing.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to be way cool. Is that something
It
you and your
sounds
family
amazing.
would
I
want to
don't
come
think I
to?
can make it, unfortunately, but
Okay.
I wish I could. It looks amazing. Maybe
it's gonna be
I'll
great.
take a rain check.
Okay. I know we've got one coming up in New York as well, and then in Seattle, and then
Yeah, the New
we've
York
got a
one would be a
retreat
lot
in Wyoming.
easier.
So New York would be the more easy one for you.
Yeah. Do you know what time of year it is?
I have to look on our website, but it's in a couple months. So
Okay.
yep. But
So
that'll be good.
summer.
Yeah, that'll be way good, and we'll get you connected there. That'll be awesome to see you in person, you know. So
yeah, no, definitely.
Well, I appreciate you, man. I'm so grateful for you, and it's just a excellent takeaways. Have a little bit of notes here that I'm like, oh, I need to go back and put these together. So
good, man. Great. Glad it went well, and I hope. Let me know when it goes live. I don't know what's your
Thursday is when I'm going to have it go live. So
this Thursday already. Cool.
Yeah, so that's what I have currently planned. It might be at 8. It might be 8:45. If I have someone that's live, then I'll prioritize the person that actually does it live, and then the recording will be either right before or right after. So
sounds good.
Be awesome.
Okay.
Well, I appreciate you.
All right, man.
And we'll talk again soon, man.
Yeah.
And if you ever know anyone that wants to learn Mandarin, utilizing your techniques, be happy to connect with them that way. Because that class that I've about a third way recorded on it, that's going to be up probably in the next 3 or 4 months. So
this is like a course they can.
It's called Mandarin in 60 days. So basically, I'm taking them through 3 years high school level of Mandarin, get to intermediate low in 60 days.
Okay.
So, yeah. Right. So any of your people that are interested in that, if that would be of value, happy to connect you with it.
Okay. Yeah. I'll keep that in mind. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Take care.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.